Chapter 3 History. Everyone between the ages of 12 and 19 is now a potential, Cor explained. On the morrow, you will begin preparing yourselves for the challenge ahead. In 5 months, all of the potentials will assemble, and the contenders will be chosen from among them. There will be 125 teams, each consisting of 6 contenders. Every contender will be assigned a rank within the team to establish the order of leadership. Prior to midsummer, each of the team's members will face an individual proficiency test. If at least 4 members pass, the whole team will qualify to compete in the trials. 6 months from now, on Midsummer's Day, the trials will begin and will continue until one team returns victorious. At the conclusion of his speech, there was a moment of utter stillness as the meaning of Cor's words sunk in. The beat of my heart accelerated, filling my body with tense and eager excitement. Each passing year had brought me closer to missing the opportunity of being a contender in the trials. However, at 16, I was the perfect age. Deep within, anticipation continued to grow in my chest until I wasn't sure how I could possibly contain it all. I desperately wanted to be chosen. If I wasn't, I didn't think I could bear it. On the stone seat beside me, I felt Rasby shudder. From the cold or from the proclamation, I didn't know, but I could easily guess. She wasn't like me. There was no passion or drive in her. If placed on a team, she would give up before they even passed through the valley of the north wind. Rasby was already a burden to those around her, but things were different in the land of the clan. The games we played weren't really dangerous, and the victories we won didn't really mean anything. What did it matter if I had to pull her weight as well as my own? However, once the trials began, I wouldn't be able to carry her anymore, even if we were on the same team. Never once in her life had she pushed herself or been willing to do anything uncomfortable. The skills and discipline necessary to survive were something Rasby would never have. She was not meant to be a contender in the trials, nor was she meant to be a clan leader. My eyes traveled to Myra. She was standing in the shadows just off stage. Unlike Cor, who was clearly hiding what he felt, her face and posture left one to believe that she had never felt an emotion of any kind. I struggled to gain composure, trying to mimic her cool calmness. If I was going to be in the trials, I would need it. "It has been my pleasure serving you all these years," Cor said, breaking the silence. "But it is time for myself, Myra, Fallow, and Joel," he gestured to Myra and the 2 other men he had named, "to see a new beginning in the clan's history." The other 3 clan leaders quickly mounted the stairs and joined him on the stage. He paused and looked at each of the other 3 in turn. There was an unspeakable depth of emotion in his eyes. The 4 had spent the majority of their lives leading the clan together, ever since their team had won the last trials. As with all teams, theirs had started with 6 members, but only those 4 had survived. 3 were all that was necessary to claim victory, so up to half of a team might die, and the strongest could still continue on to become the winners. An experience filled with such hardship and danger would bind a team together as nothing else could. The members were forced to trust each other with their very lives. On the stage, Myra took Cor's hand. The 2 faced us and bowed. They had been first and second clan leaders since before many of us had been born. I tried to capture the moment in my mind. Someday, I planned to be the one bowing before the clan after a lifetime spent serving them. Silently, the oldest of the clan's members among us rose. They were the ones who remembered the last time the trials had been announced and the ceremony required for such an event. Around them, like ripples in a puddle, others began to rise, until everyone was standing. Rasby reached for my hand. At first, I did not want to give it to her. I detested when she was clingy. However, a moment later, I saw that the entirety of the clan was joining hands, so I allowed her to take mine. I also reached for the hand of the woman on the other side of me. She was young, but not young enough to be a potential. Her hand felt worn and calloused, and I noticed a few bits of sawdust on the dark green clothes she wore. The sawdust alone would have indicated to me that she was from Treescape, even if I hadn't seen her garb. Realization of what was about to happen washed over me. Everything was going to change. Nothing would ever be the same again. In 6 months, the trials would begin, and I would do whatever it took to be among those chosen. In all of our history, no winning team had ever returned with all 6 members. I would change that. Not only would I lead my team to victory, but I would do it without a single casualty, and the clan would remember my name forever. A moment after we had joined hands, we bowed to our leaders on the stage. Similar to when we had all risen to our feet, the elderly, the ones who had witnessed it all before, started the motion, and the rest of us followed their lead. Then, slowly, we took our seats, eager to hear the rest of what Kor had to say. Once the winning team returns, we will spend a year with them, guiding them and making sure that they are well prepared to lead you. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was different. Much of the tension had gone out of it. Now, I will tell you the history of our people, as far back as we know. Kor glanced at the other clan leaders and waited as they repositioned themselves to 3 of the 4 empty chairs in the center of the stage. Some years, 1 or more of them would do part of the telling, but it seemed that Kor would be the only speaker that evening. The elders and village leaders joined them on stage as well, silently taking the seats along the back. Each village had 5 village leaders assigned to it. Those officials were appointed by the council from among the most prestigious members of the Paramount. 3 out of the 5 lived full-time in their designated villages, ensuring that the required quota of goods was produced each day and that the village's needs were met. The last 2 village leaders acted as representatives to the council. They traveled back and forth between the village where they were assigned and the Paramount. If ever a problem arose, they addressed the council on behalf of their village. The best and wisest village leaders were asked to return to the Paramount and join the council as elders. The clan leaders, elders, and representatives made up the council. However, the representatives were only included when the discussion involved the village they spoke for. There were plenty of disagreements, but matters almost never came to a vote. Generally, topics were discussed until everyone present agreed on a course of action. Since that could take a considerable amount of time, the council meetings tended to be quite lengthy, sometimes lasting as long as 10 hours a day. Very few of the members attended the meetings every single day, but Myra did. I wondered if she intentionally came up with things to discuss just so she wouldn't have to come back to our dwelling until after I was asleep. I turned my thoughts back to Kor, standing on the stage in front of the clan. After clearing his throat, he began to recite the history of our people. He had a deep, rich voice, and as the words poured forth, they twisted into the account of our ancestors. I had heard it many times, but I loved listening to the history. It spoke of an age long before the clan had existed, when danger and chaos had confronted our people. A very long time ago, he began, the world was different from how it is now. Our ancestors lived outside the land of the clan, in a beautiful golden city called Excella. It was a place of perfect happiness. Great knowledge was gathered there in the form of books. People devoted their lives to the study of medicine, astronomy, botany, and hundreds of other scientific pursuits. The culture thrived and flourished beneath an upright and principled leadership. But it was not to last. A dark enemy was lurking nearby, a plague that watched the people of Excella with malice and hatred. The people of Excella were oblivious to what was taking place outside their glorious city. If they had any fault at all, perhaps it was that blindness, the inability to see what lay beyond the safety of their walls. They did not realize their own vulnerability or the growing threat just outside their gate. The darkness came upon the great city late one night. It settled over the rooftops, blotting out the moon and the stars. The inhabitants of Excella woke in terror to find their home being torn to pieces. They were left with no choice save to flee. Some made it out, but many more were trapped inside and devoured by the darkness. Those who had escaped scattered, seeking refuge anywhere they could find it. The darkness pursued them. Hundreds and hundreds were killed. The earth was washed in blood, filled with horror and shadowed by misery. Children cried in the night for parents that would never come to save them. After a year, the darkness tired of the chase. Instead, it intertwined itself with the earth, so as to persecute our ancestors anew. The ground grew black and hard, and it didn't matter what you planted in it, nothing would grow. People could no longer eat the sweet yields of the field, so they turned to eating meat. They stripped the land of its game, trying to find enough to feed themselves and their families. Parents were forced to watch their children starve. Still, the darkness was not satisfied. Growing impatient, it stretched up through the earth, releasing a disease from deep within. The sickness caused men to become blind and deaf. Their skin burned and rotted on their bones. Soon, so few were left that the darkness was certain man wouldn't survive. 3 years after Excella was raised, the darkness faded from the world, having burned itself up in the extermination of our ancestors. Even once gone, it left behind a legacy of blackened land, disease-afflicted creatures, and dark shadows filled with death. The remnants of our once proud race were left to die in the ashes of our forsaken city. But our ancestors did not die. They crawled from hiding and searched for a place of safety and peace. Finally, they found the only land the darkness had left untouched, the same place where we have dwelt ever since the days of the darkness. It was the only sanctuary that still existed on the earth, the last place where the ground was still fertile, the water still flowing, and the air still clean. They began to work the fields and found that this place was good for producing food. They built dwellings and a village. The community began to grow. It looked like our race might be saved. The man who had led them was named Peter. He is the father of the clan. He united the fragments of our people and brought them back from the brink of extinction. In those days, all men did not speak the same language. When they couldn't communicate with each other, distance grew. Peter had studied and learned all the languages of the earth at Excella. He used his gift to teach others the common language and the high language, both of which we still speak today. This was the last piece to uniting mankind, a common tongue. And so, for a decade, it appeared as if our ancestors' troubles were finally at an end. But Peter was very old when this land was found. After only 11 years of leading the clan, he passed away peacefully in his sleep, and what remained of our race almost died with him. There were 2 men who rose to vie for his position. No one realized they had been infected with the darkness, body and mind. The 2 began to manipulate the people, and with the help of their life mates and a few close friends, they sought to gain support. They began spreading lies about each other, both determined to make themselves king of the clan, no matter the cost. With the people divided and a lingering remnant of the darkness remaining among them, blood would have been shed and the final hope of our race dashed to pieces, if Jessica, Peter's only child, hadn't intervened. She saw the darkness in the hearts of the 2 men and exposed their brokenness to the people of the clan. She told them that if the peace couldn't be kept, then mankind would be erased forever. The clan heeded her words and drove away the 2 men and all those who aided them. Never again were they permitted entry to the beautiful land that was a home to the rest of mankind. They were forced to return to where the earth was black and the sky gray instead of blue. It was there, in a land without hope, that the evil men and their followers met their end. They are an example to us that outside our land, death is waiting. It is only our peacefulness and compliance to the rules that keeps us safe. The rest of the clan wanted to make Jessica ruler in place of her father, but she wouldn't allow it. Jessica declared instead that the clan would never have a single king or lord again. She formed the first council from the wisest of the elders. They elected her to join them as the first clan leader. While Jessica served with the council, she and the others created the trials. They knew that leaders had to be strong, wise, and cunning. But most importantly, they needed to be certain that the leaders could work together, and that they would be willing to do whatever was necessary to make sure the clan survived. The trials were designed to ensure that only those worthy of the position would ever lead the clan. There would no longer be power struggles. Never again would the clan tear itself apart over such things. The first trials were held 11 years after the council was formed. The rules were then as they are now. Teams of 6 contenders train, qualify, and then embark on the trials with a sole objective delivered from the clan leaders. Each team is hand-picked and designed to have the best possible chance at success. To that end, the members are to be chosen from at least 3 different villages, but no individual is to be without someone they know and have trained with. Siblings are never to be placed on the same team, since this can confuse the loyalties of the team members. The first team to return, having completed the task set before them with at least 3 members still living, is to be named victorious, and its surviving members are to be the new clan leaders. Together with the council, they are responsible for guiding the clan for a span of 50 years. The first clan leaders and council were the ones who set up our society so that we and our descendants could be completely self-sufficient. They divided the clan into the 9 villages, with a paramount in the middle and the others spread out around it like the spokes of a wheel. They gave each village its own purpose to ensure that we would always have everything we needed. Through their care and stewardship, the land has grown plentiful. To this day, we must still remember and thank our ancestors for the legacy they have left us, though we will never regain the knowledge stored in the library of Excella, now lost for all time. They have left us everything we need for a peaceful and quiet life. Cor paused for a moment. He had come to the end of the history. Next, he would lead us in the adage of the clan. We are the clan. We were created to be order when all else was chaos. We have lived in peace as our fathers have taught us. We show justice to all without hesitation. We will continue as we have been, the only perfect society. As soon as he finished the recitation, the entirety of the clan took up the words, in the high language this time, and repeated what he had said as one. Cor nodded approvingly at us. Now, the time has come to ready ourselves. On the morrow, we will begin the preparations for the 11th trials of the clan. Cor's final words were met with cheers. I was carefully watching Myra. I'm sure her face was still a mask to most, but I, who had lived with her so long, saw something new there. Was it sorrow? No, it wasn't sharp enough for sorrow. Regret, maybe. But what could she regret? She had won, after all. As the cheers died away, I thought I saw a tear run down Cor's cheek, but it might have been a trick of the firelight. All around the amphitheater, emotions were running high. Parents hugged their smaller children, fearing for what was to come. Some of the children, potentials now, looked enthusiastic. Others were frightened, like Rasby. A few held themselves composed as I did, whether for excitement or fear, I didn't know. At that moment, I caught Bala's eye. She was off to my right, a few rows back. She gave me a small smile, sly and happy. She was every bit as pleased with the evening's outcome as I was. She would be fighting hard to make sure she became a contender. Bala would certainly be an interesting teammate to have. She was a middle child in a large family that never took the time to notice her. Just like their daughter, Bala's parents always seemed to be unimportant. Neither held a prominent position. Her mother was a clerk and her father a distributor, someone responsible for delivering the food and wood rations that came to the Paramount each day. Bala wasn't exactly what I would call a friend. We'd been opponents during Attack and Defend so many times I wasn't sure we'd ever be able to work together. However, I had learned a lot of strategy from being pitted against her. She could make a good ally if I could deal with her personality. She had a mean streak a mile wide and always seemed to be slinking around in the shadows, trying to learn things she wasn't supposed to know. On occasion, I'd seen her pinch her baby brother until he screamed, for no other reason than to vex her own mother. Cor stepped back, taking his seat. Myra replaced him on center stage. She was short compared to Cor, and her dark brown hair didn't even reach her shoulders. Her face had few wrinkles, except around her mouth, where the skin was oddly taut. 2 eyes, the same gray color as mine, were set deep in her face. The dark maroon dress she wore was covered by a cloak even darker than the dress itself. The crowd quieted for her instantly. One day, I would command that kind of respect. Tomorrow, the preparations will begin. Early in the morning, all potentials must assemble at the town center of their respective villages. A council member will give them directions. She glanced back at Cor for a moment before continuing. Potentials, we will begin watching you from this moment forward. Do not disappoint the clan. You are our future.